that is the finishing. Alright, that's our reading for today, so. A lot of, issues. I have a lot of issues with all that stuff we just read. Yeah. It is interesting to me, like, you look at the older stories and they always talk about, like, God actually coming down to earth and, like, talking with the people face to face. Which is interesting because later in the Bible it says no one can see God and live. But in these verses, like, it says that, like, God came down from heaven and, like, talked to Abraham face to face and, you know, actually, like, sat under a tree and ate bread with him. And so it's interesting how that morphs over time into, you know, God actually being a physical being coming down. And then I feel like throughout the Old Testament, he slowly turns into, like, just this being up in the sky. But I guess we haven't read all that, so. But, I mean, in the New Testament, like, there's no... other than Jesus. Oh, that's gross. See, that's weird, because, like, the angels told Lot's wife to not look back, not Lot, so... how do they justify that? Because the angels told them not to, and they were supposedly men? I guess that makes sense. New covenant. There is no new covenant. Well, there is. Here's the thing. If you follow like Jesus and what he said, there's no new covenant, because Jesus said that you have to stick to the original covenant in order to go to heaven. But then Paul came along and said that he saw Jesus in a vision and Jesus had changed all that and told him, no, all you have to do is believe in his death and resurrection. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's very interesting because they make him more of a person in the Old Testament, I feel like, where he actually has, like, physical body and stuff, but then later he turns into spirit. So, which, I don't know how you explain spirit, like, because when I hear spirit, I feel, it's like ghost, but I don't believe in ghosts, so... if you don't believe in ghosts and you don't believe, like, there's some sort of paranormal, like, how do you... or supernatural, I guess they would say in the church. How would you describe spirit? Yeah, I didn't realize that, like, the first 20 chapters, it's all just, like, all those stories that you hear growing up in the church, like, they're just, like, boom, boom, boom. They're all right there. Because it's like we went from Adam and Eve to Noah and then Abraham. So it's just like, they're real fast. But I don't know. It's really weird to me that they have a lot of repeats too, because I feel like they say the same thing over and over again in a lot of places. And especially with, like, the Abraham story where it's like two different, like, kings, but it's the same story. And I don't know, I've heard that happens a lot in the Bible where they just take the same story and change the names and even the people who were in the story and just repeat it. Especially, I know with, like, Jesus, they were talking about how a lot of his story, like, lines up with some of the Old Testament stories too, and, like, they just took those stories and, like, rehashed them to make Jesus into a prophet and all this stuff, so it is interesting. Yeah, I don't know how you can read the first... I mean, we've only read the first 20 chapters, and already, like, there's horrible things in it. Like, there's genocide, and there's, like, God destroying whole cities, and people having slaves, and treating women as property. Like, it's all right there if you just read it straightforward. It says exactly what they believe and what they think. And I don't know. I don't know how anyone who reads that, or even the apologists who read that, like, can come out and say, oh no, God didn't say this, because, I mean, like yesterday when we were talking, like, an angel clearly stated that the slave girl needed to go back to her master. I mean, that was an angel. He was a messenger of God. So you can't say that God did not condone these things, because he does, clearly, if the angel's telling the girl to go back. But, yeah. I mean, even just reading the first 20 chapters, like, I think a lot of people, if they had not been raised this way and been told that this is actual history, this is actually what happened, this is what we believe about the world because it's actually lines up with archaeology and history and all that. I mean, if I hadn't been taught that way and I had just read that, there'd be red flags going off real quick. But, yeah, and I don't think I've ever actually, like, read the Bible all the way through. I mean, I know I've read, like, bits and pieces of it, and I've heard it in church, and, but actually looking at it yourself and looking at the text and being like, what does this actually say? You know, what did God actually line out in the Bible, as opposed to, you know, what your pastor or people in your church tell you in Sunday school? Because I think a lot of the times those people don't even read the Bible. They just kind of regurgitate whatever they're told, and they believe it, instead of actually looking at the text and being like, well, what does this actually say, and how does this apply to that culture, and how does this have nothing to do with us now? Like, and I think that's where that critical thinking comes in too, because a lot of people don't use that when it comes to religion. I mean, they'll use it for other religions, like, oh, this stuff really can't happen because, you know, Muhammad really can't split the moon in half, or, I don't know, the other texts that say things like that. And they're just like, no, that can't be true. But then we look at the Bible and we go, oh yeah, it's true. Even though it says, like, miracles that really don't happen did happen. And I mean, even the first chapter of the Bible says, like, how the earth and stuff was formed. And if you ever look up, like, how the earth actually looked to people in the Old Testament, it's really interesting, because it's basically like a giant snow globe. And the earth was, like, flat, and then there's, like, a globe over it, and then water above and water below. And yeah, you would have to completely change your entire idea of I don't know, science and things that we know of today. Like, we know the earth is round, we know that it's in space and it's floating, and yeah, so I don't know how people reconcile how that works, because if you actually do believe that and you look at that, like, you would have to believe that God somehow completely changed the earth after the flood, which a lot of them do. Like, a lot of people think that, you know, all that changed after the flood, but I don't know how God can go from a flat earth to, like, flooding the world and then the earth is completely round. Like, it seems like a stretch to me, but anyways. Anyone else have any insights or anything they want to talk about today? I don't know. It's interesting. I thought this would be, like, super boring, but I still wanted to do it, and now that I'm doing it, I'm like, oh, this isn't boring. Like, there's a lot of things that get me thinking, and yeah, it's always easy to push it out when you're dead. that that promise of stuff afterwards, but you have no proof of it. Thank you. I'm glad. It's weird reading it though, because I feel like I'm not that great of a reader, but reading all those Bibles names, I feel like I was just like, I don't know, speaking an alien language or something. And I know I got a lot of them probably incorrect, so. But I'm trying to, I don't know, make this enjoyable for people and like actually want to come and read along. And yeah, it's funny because when I started, I was like, I don't want to do like a Bible study. I just want to read so that people can read along with me. But the more I get into it, the more I realize like, oh, like these are things I want to talk about and discuss and think critically about. And I don't know. I think going through it and asking questions and being like, this doesn't make sense, or like, well, why does the text say that? Or I think that's something that I'm not used to because of the way I was taught in church and grew up in church. And I think being able to do this with other people and like have feedback from people who have left the church and understand like where I'm coming from, like it changes how I want to do this, because it's like, oh, I don't want to do a Bible study, but it's like, yeah, this is actually nice. Like, this is like atheist Bible study, but like we can actually ask the questions we want here and actually like dig into the text and figure it all out. And yeah, I think like I just got like that book from Dr. Josh about the Old Testament too, and I think when I start reading that, like there'll be a lot more answers too that I can like chime in on. But my husband's reading it right now, so I have to wait till he's done. But yeah, I'm excited to read that, and especially reading the Bible, like reading it before I read that book, I think a lot of things will make a lot more sense to me now because I will understand it a lot better and see that perspective. Hello, sir now. Hey, yeah, I think reading the Bible before I read Dr. Josh's book is actually going to help me see a lot more of those issues and just see like how that culture in that time actually dealt with some of that stuff. Because I think like if I hadn't read the Bible along with it, like I know some of the stories because I was raised in it, and they tell you all those things when you're a kid, like Noah's Ark and Abraham and how the earth was created, and but actually digging into them and seeing them from the other side, I think is going to be interesting. Yeah, I'm excited about that book actually. And I know he's gonna I know he talked about at least doing a second one, so I think that's gonna be a good thing for people who have left the church, and just to understand like where these people were actually coming from. And I've read a lot of other books from other people about archaeology and history and things, but I think Josh has a really unique perspective because like he has actually studied that culture in that time period, and not just like the Israelites, like just them, like he studied that whole region, and I feel like has super good insight on like how the different cultures in that region came to like the myths and things that they actually had. So I think it will be good. And I think, well, and like you said, it's a handbook, so it's going to be good for, even if you're talking to someone who's a Christian and they have a question, like, and you don't know the answer to it, you can look it up in that handbook and be like, well, this is what they were actually thinking back then, and this is how their culture was, and this is why it says what it says in the Bible. So I think that's a great way to actually look at that. But yeah, I'm one of those people. I love like just history and religion in general. So, like, once I left the church, like, I just, like, deep dived into all kinds of things. And it's funny because growing up in the church, like, I used to read, like, books about all kinds of different religions and just be like, this is ridiculous. But I never applied the logic that I applied to those in my own life. And I don't know, I think that might have just made it easier for me when I did leave, because it's like, oh, well, if all these people believe this religion and all these people believe this religion, there's obviously a reason that people, you know, have the faith that they do. And a lot of times it's just indoctrination. I am always curious, though, about people who weren't raised in it and came to it later. But I feel like a lot of those people were in vulnerable places when that happened. And the church kind of took advantage of that. Because I've never, like, every time I was in church, I never heard a testimony about someone being like, oh, my life was amazing and I loved it and I just wanted to go to church. It's always, I was a mess, I was a drug addict, I was a thief or whatever, I was in jail for 10 years. Like, I've never heard a testimony that's like, my life was amazing and then I found God. So it's interesting that a lot of those people, like, they needed something at those points in their lives and the church just happened to be there. And I'm sure that happens in other religions too. Like, I feel like Christians sometimes think that that only happens within their circles. But I'm sure, like, the same thing happens in other religions where people are vulnerable and the religion preys on them. I mean, it's not just Christianity that uses the tactics that they do to get people into the church. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm babbling. Anybody else have anything else they want to say? All right. Well, I have kids screaming in the living room, so I probably should go deal with that. So, thank you all for coming. I'm going to try to do, tomorrow we're going to start on, 20? So 21 tomorrow? Yeah, we'll start on 21 tomorrow. I don't know what time, we'll see. Depends on my day. But, yeah. Thank you everyone for coming, and have an amazing day and a great weekend. And I'm glad you guys are coming and reading the Bible with me. Thanks, guys.